Okay, so we remember we talked about this earlier. On the x-axis, we have highly stereotyped, fixed, little variation. In other words, if the cue, the stimulus is there, they'll do the behavior over and over and over. And it'll usually run until it's finished. So if it gets interrupted, they usually go back to square one. It's kind of like this, a batch program. We don't have batch programs anymore, but in the old days, with computers, you'd have a batch program where you would submit a whole bunch of card files, and it would do one thing, not like what we can do today. Okay? Now, that means it's not flexible at all. And then, of course, on the other side, going to the right, it's highly flexible. You can adjust your behavior depending on what kind of stimulus or what kind of environment you're actually in. Okay. And then the innate versus learning goes on the y-axis. If it's innate, no modification through learning, or it originates and is modified through learning. So examples: language acquisition, bird song with fixed or open-ended learners. That there's parts of it that are actually pretty innate. In other words, like the critical period, or the individual bird's species-specific template, right? Now, something like yawning, I guess, that's highly it's innate and highly stereotyped with little variations. So a lot of times someone will start yawning, and then everybody else in the room will start yawning as well. It'll go around and around and around, and everybody will suddenly be tired. Okay. Okay, here we are. So in terms of animals, now there are the only animals that don't have any sort of nervous system at all are sponges. But everything else has at least a rudimentary nervous system, whether it's a neural net like sea anemones and jellyfish, all the way up to vertebrates. Okay. Some neurons acquire information from the animal's environment. Others process those messages from these sensory cells. And still others send out commands telling the body to do something in response to these inputs. Now, and this is something that where we've been exposed to before. This is the bird brain for the zebrafinch. And all songbirds basically have this same design. In fact, even birds that aren't related to each other, like hummingbirds, they follow the same design, but they're slightly different structures, kind of convergent structures. And so, obviously, they not only have to have, let's say, a template, they also have to have a good memory in terms of what the song sounds like. And then, in terms of delivering it, they have to eventually get that signal down to the syrinx where they make the proper song. So there's a lot of stuff going on here in terms of the actual neural inputs and outputs. At the base of it, these different structures are, of course, innate, right? Now, there may vary a bit between individuals. Some individuals may have a bigger RA than others, and these are going to change during the season, but this is the basic structure of the bird brain for songbirds. And then, in terms of the structure allows the bird to actually learn things. And once they've learned those things, to operate with that learning, like producing crystallized song. So this is, what is this like in terms of human babies? Anybody? So we've got a gull, right? And we've got a chick, or a young gull. What's akin to that with human babies? What do human babies do automatically? Come on, someone just raise your hand. They suck. Right, exactly. More ways than one. Okay, so this is actually a fixed action pattern. The baby gull doesn't have to learn this at all. Just like a human baby doesn't have to learn sucking at all, or any other mammal for that matter. There's an instinctual, innate action, behavior, that's, as long as it's stimulated with the correct releaser, then everything's going to be fine. Now, in this case, for the gull, this is the adult, they have a red spot. That's a visual signal. That's the innate releasing mechanism. Okay. And, of course, what happens is, we actually look over here, this is the mechanism. It makes the young one open its mouth. Now, that's itself is another releaser. What does it cause the adult to do? Well, is there food involved or sex? Food. Okay. And it turns out the adult has gone off and eaten a bunch of stuff that's going to regurgitate the food, and the baby will eat it. And then, if you actually look at the releasing the original releasing mechanism, okay, so we have the original red spot right here. We have a smaller red spot, but still it's there. Relative pecking response. Here is an individual with no red spot, not very many pecks. So when you have something like this, which isn't natural, what is it called? Supranormal stimuli, right? Remember about the bull and the motorcycle when I first showed that in class. That's a supernormal stimuli. Or a bird with an egg that's, let's say, 3 times its normal size. So in this case, the releaser, you can actually determine what the releaser is. It's actually not the bill, it's actually the red. The more red you have, the stronger the releaser, and the stronger the behavior. But obviously, you get to a certain point and it's diminishing returns. So in this case, we've got a bill with a big enough red spot that the pecking behavior is pretty consistent. And in terms of the nervous system, what kind of a cue is it? It's a visual cue, right? So the baby sees the red spot. That sends a signal to its brain. It doesn't even have to understand. It doesn't understand anything. It sees that signal. It pecks at the adult's bill, and it also opens up its mouth, and the adult then gives him food. So the pecking behavior of the young gulls is what's actually released. They start pecking at that red spot to get the adult to open up its mouth and regurgitate. And then, of course, so we've got the visual stimuli. We've got then there's going to be some processing, not very much, probably, and that it's going to release that mechanism, and it's going to go through. There'll be signals sent out to the baby bird to peck, and so there'll be interneurons and motor neurons all tied into the actual neurons that give the behavior, what kind of behavior it's going to be. Okay. So unlike human males, who will basically mate with anything that moves, male insects will even try to mate with inanimate objects if they have the right releaser. Just like the gull and the red spot. Okay? So in this case, we've got a beetle over here. It's got this yellow sign. And in this case, it's the thumb, I think. And this gets the male to actually go through its routine for trying to mate. Yeah, and so this is another FAP. In insects, there's a lot of FAPs that don't involve learning, the fixed action patterns. But there's also a fair number in some vertebrates, like waterfowl and seabirds, like albatrosses. The pairs actually go through this whole very stereotyped behavior where they have to do it just right, and it's basically bonding. And for some of them that make lifelong bonds, they might not see each other for a long time, like albatrosses. The male and female might be out to sea for 11 months out of the year, and so they have to reestablish things when they see each other that 1 month when they're going to actually breed. So let's we'll call it a day here, and we'll head off to